version.
On the surface, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 feels like a typical military shooter. You're equipped with realistic weapons and step into the role of an ordinary soldier, but certain moments in the game carry a weight that's far more disturbing. A striking example is the radio chatter, especially in the missions Wolverines and Of Their Own Accord. The transmissions are faint, often drowned out by the fighting. However, once you hear them clearly, they stay with you long after the game is over. In one of my previous videos, I broke down a few of these transmissions, and a lot of people seemed to enjoy it. At the end, I mentioned there were plenty more worth examining and that I might return to the topic. That's exactly what I'm doing today. To quickly recap why all this is happening, in the third mission you play, Cliffhanger, Task Force 141 attempts to recover a stolen ACS module from the Russians before it can be cracked. They succeed and barely manage to escape, but by then it's already too late. The Russians had broken the code, and after the No Russian attack gave them the justification they needed, they used the compromised ACS to disorient American radar. US forces were led to believe an invasion was coming from the west coast, when in reality, the Russians advanced directly on the capital and established a firm hold over the northeast.
Sierra Delta, repeat.
I'm looking at fighter jets over I-95! How the hell did they get through?
The US military was left completely unprepared. All they could do was quickly pull together whatever forces were already in the area, including US Army Ranger Sergeant Foley and his squad, who operated under Hunter 2-1, 1st Battalion of the 75th Ranger Regiment. Earlier in the game, we're first introduced to this regiment in Afghanistan, where they assist in training Afghan National Army soldiers and carry out a rescue of a stranded BC2 unit trapped in a town held by OPFOR, the same faction that served as the primary antagonist in the Marine campaign of Call of Duty 4, led by Khaled al-Assad. And this leads directly into the situation unfolding in the story now, the full-scale invasion. Imagine being stationed in Afghanistan, counting the days until you can finally escape the war, but when you return home, the war comes to you, not to some distant town in the Middle East, but rather to your own homeland. It's a chilling scenario to imagine. And then this brings us back to the radio transmissions. Like I said before, they're pretty hard to catch while you're playing, but they add a lot of context to the invasion and show just how overwhelming the situation really is. The first transmission is one you actually take part in during the game. After defending the Washington Monument, you push your way up to the roof and board a helicopter, hearing the chatter unfold you around you as you play.
Overlord, we've linked up with the SEALs on the rooftop and are heading out. Interrogative. Has the Washington Monument site been evacuated? Over.
Negative, 2-1. They're still pinned down by infantry and light armor from the World War II memorial. Doesn't look good from here. Over.
Foley radios command as soon as the squad links up with the SEALs on the roof. The first thing he asks is whether the Washington Monument has been evacuated. That alone shows how critical the situation has become, where civilians are still a major concern even while the fighting goes on. Now, Overlord's reply makes things feel even more desperate. The monument hasn't been cleared, and those who are inside are pinned down by enemy infantry and armored vehicles coming from the World War II memorial. When Overlord adds the "doesn't look good from here," it really shows how bleak things really are. Overlord is always presented as someone who is calm and in command of the situation. If even Overlord is openly admitting that the evacuation is failing, then the soldiers on the ground are in a near impossible situation.
Copy, Overlord. We'll do what we can from the air. Out.
This is Hunter 2-1 actual. We have eyes on multiple hostile victors and foot mobiles. Request permission to engage. Over. Your call, 2-1. Outlaw is pinned down at the bunkers. You're cleared hot along the MSR. Over. Squad, we're engaging all targets of opportunity to buy Outlaw some time to get out. This may be a one-way trip. Whoa.
Foley checks back in with command and says they'll do what they can from the air. He spots enemy vehicles and infantry moving in and asks if they're cleared to engage. Overlord gives him the go-ahead and mentions that Outlaw is pinned down at the bunkers. He also tells them they're cleared to fire along the MSR, which is short for main supply route. This is basically the primary road used to move troops and equipment. You can tell how out of control the battle is when the fighting reaches the main route used for transport. Foley says this may be a one-way trip. It's short and it sticks with you. The way it comes across makes it clear that the squad's chances of getting out alive are slim.
Dagger 2, sand launch. Break left, break left.
We're bleeding hydraulic fluid!
Overlord, Dagger 2-2 and 2-3 are down. I repeat, Dagger 2-2 and 2-3 are down. Over.
One of your accompanying helicopters, Dagger 2-2, gets hit by a SAM launch. All Dagger 2-1 can do to help is tell him to break left before the strike happens, but it's too late. When a pilot is breathing hydraulic fluid, this means that the helicopter's been hit and is leaking fluid into the cockpit. Hydraulic fluid is what powers a helicopter's control systems, and without it, the pilot is unable to steer or stabilize the aircraft. So when Dagger 2-2 says this, he's saying the aircraft is seconds away from crashing. It's a technical report of something grim, and his screams make it all the more terrifying. The only thing he can do is panic, since any ability to regain control has already been swept away from him. Dagger 2-1 then tells Overlord that Dagger 2-2 and 2-3 are down. While it's possible that not every detail I say here is correct, chances are that when he says this, he's the only helicopter left in his flight. A flight is just a small group of aircraft working together under the same call sign. In other words, you're now the last one left in the air to provide support for the Washington Monument.
First wave of civilian transports is away. Reaver 2, proceed with second stage evacuation. Litter urgent personnel only.
Overlord calls out that the first group of civilian transports has made it out, and then orders Reaper 2 to start the second stage of evacuations. When Overlord says litter urgent personnel only, it means the evacuation is limited to those in the worst shape, and people so badly hurt they can't even move on their own.
Atlas 2-3, 2-4, and 2-5 are all away. Ground units at LZ-4, fall back now.
This part is absolutely heartbreaking, and it doesn't really need much analysis. They're forced to leave civilians behind simply because the transport can't take on any more weight. Imagine being one of those people. You're right there, so close to safety, only to be told there's no room and you have to stay behind in a battle you were never meant to be a part of. It's devastating.
Dagger 2, the Washington Monument is taking fire from the main road.
Copy that, we're on it. Overlord, this is Dagger 2-1. We've taken some of the heat off the evac site.
Overlord to all units, evacuation order April. I repeat, evacuation order April. Everyone get the hell out of there.
Get your man on that transport now! We are leaving!
Even though you manage to take some of the pressure off the Washington Monument evac site, there's so much happening at once that it isn't enough. The fight has gotten so desperate that you're firing heavy rounds directly into the World War II memorial, causing massive damage to it in the process. But at this point, it doesn't matter. Evacuation Order April is the code for every remaining unit to abandon the area immediately. It's essentially command admitting that DC is lost, and there's no way to save the civilians still trapped. From here on, everyone is left to fend for themselves. And then you hear the Ranger practically screaming at his men to get on the transport because they're leaving right now. That moment gives me chills. At this point, survival is the only thing on anyone's mind.
This is Atlas Run 1, civilian transport going down 2 clicks west of DuPont Circle.
And finally, you hear a transport going down in real time over the radio. There are screams in the background and then the transmission cuts out completely. That silence says it all. Everyone on board, civilians included, is most likely gone. There's so much going on in this transmission, especially since you're forced to multitask and gun down targets from the helicopter yourself. You don't usually catch all of it, especially on a first playthrough. The music is what makes this scene stand out though. The guitar riffs hit hard, and it really feels like you're losing this battle. Not just losing though, you're getting stomped, with the military forced to salvage whatever little they have left. The next transmission shifts to another unit, starting with a call for a sit rep that quickly turns into a report of almost total losses.
Viper 3 actual, this is Viper actual. Give me a sit rep over.
Viper Actual, this is 3 Bravo, Echo 4 Sierra. 3 Bravo Actual. Repeat, 3 Bravo Actual is KIA. 3, we are down to 3 men. I repeat, we are down to 3 men. How copy over?
Here, Viper Actual is asking Viper 3 for a sitrep, or situation report, but instead of Viper 3 Actual responding, it's 3 Bravo Echo 4 Sierra. The reason for that is because Viper 3 Actual is already dead, so this surviving soldier has to answer. On top of that, he announces that 3 Bravo Actual, his own commanding officer, is also dead. When he says break, it basically means pause here or new sentence, making sure each part of the message comes through clearly. Only 3 men are left. In an infantry squad that normally starts with 9 to 12 soldiers, that means the majority of them are already gone. With their numbers cut down this far and their commanding officer killed, the survivors have no support left and are forced to fight on their own.
Solid copy, 3 Bravo. Be advised, I have Warhammer standing by. Switch to TAC Freak 179er and go to town, over.
Here, Viper Actual tells 3 Bravo that they have Warhammer standing by for support. In Call of Duty, Warhammer usually refers to a heavy gunship or some other major artillery platform. You see this again later in one of Modern Warfare 3's missions, where the gunship you operate is under the call sign Warhammer. Viper Actual instructs 3 Bravo to switch their radio over to Tactical Frequency 179, or TAC 179 for short. That gives them direct communication with Warhammer. The phrase "go to town" is basically clearance to unleash everything at their command, bringing the gunship's full firepower into the fight. It's a short exchange, but it lands hard. The scene is devastating, with casualties everywhere. Viper 3, Bravo 3 Actual, and nearly all of Bravo 3 has been wiped out. Being down to only 3 men in a war zone like this is terrifying, and the chatter shows that perfectly. This next and final transmission, you've got a unit at the Lincoln Memorial getting hammered so hard, they're calling for artillery and airstrikes right on top of themselves. That's how desperate they are. At the same time, command is ordering everyone else to fall back, and even abandoning entire evac sites east of the Potomac. By the end of it, you hear they don't even have enough shells left to provide covering fire.
This is Delta 4-1 at the Lincoln Memorial. We are taking heavy fire. Request boarding and airstrike on our position. Send whatever you got. Broken arrow, broken arrow.
In my last video, I explained what broken arrow means, but I'll give a quick refresher. Broken arrow essentially tells command that your position cannot be held, and to drop any artillery on your position at the risk of hitting yourself. You don't send this unless all other options are gone. The only times this has ever been used in real combat is in Vietnam, and they're throwing this around like it's anything else, showing how many of these squadrons have been overrun and have to resort to these desperate measures. Since Delta 4-1 is calling in a broken arrow, another unit immediately orders all Goliath Victors to fall back to the MSR, or main supply route like I explained earlier. After that, you hear someone over the radio relaying an order from Central. Mystic 2-1 is told that all evac sites east of the Potomac are being abandoned. That's insane to think about, because this includes almost every major landmark in DC. You hear Overlord give Evacuation Order April in the game, but what this really means is the White House, the Capitol, the Lincoln Memorial, and the Washington Monument are all being abandoned. I just can't get past the screaming over the radio. The voice actors did a fantastic job showing that the fight was completely lost. And also not to mention they're losing what little firepower they had left. They're running out of ammo and men. The battle is over, and at this point everyone is left to fend for themselves. This group of transmissions is just infantry units packing and scrambling with one goal in mind: getting out. Every time you hear one group report they're leaving, you can assume that the area has already been overrun. And when all of them are calling to pull back at once, that's when you know it's completely over. So that's 3 more transmissions. I was going to do more, but these were all I had time for. If you want to see me cover the rest, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. And again, thank you for all the recent support. I have a ton of fun making these, and if there are any other games you'd like me to analyze or take a deeper dive into, let me know. Peace.